Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm showing you a layout I made as a design team member over at Mystical Scrapbooks. This layout is for their August cyber crop, and the challenge is to use at least six of the same shape on your layout, and also to add textiles. I'll add a link to the challenge in the description box below. I gather up an assortment of items that I think I might use, and I'm going to use three 3x3 photos from a drive in the hills that Ray and I had back in May. I end up using two of the Fancypants Family Co papers, and also those chipboard stickers you can see there from the same range. To start on my background, I'm going to use this golden glass bead gel and this Kookaburra stencil called Leaves, and I'm going to put a layer of the glass bead gel over the whole background. So everything's going to be covered. I'm going to have to move my stencil to do this. I actually found that this stencil did move around a little bit because the pieces that are between the leaves are not really very secure. So it was a bit tricky, and in places I did get a bit of the glass bead gel under the stencil. For my repetitive shape I'm using squares, and my photos are 3 inches square, so I'm going to cut a matte 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 for each one of those photos. I use an emery board and file around the edge of each of my photos, and then I also inked around my photo mats with some black ink, and now I'm going to attach each of my photos to a photo mat. The colour of the cardstock that I use to mat my photos is Kookaburra. I then take the pattern paper called Family Matters, and I cut three 3.5 inch squares that I'm going to mat my matted photos onto. I ink the edges of these squares and then attach my photos on top of them. So that gives me now my 3 matted photos. To complete the other 3 squares that I want for my grid layout, I use the Family Matters paper once again, but I use the other side, and I also use Our House paper from the same paper range to make the extra 3 squares. To start embellishing my squares, I'm going to use some of this web ribbon. One of the requirements for the challenge is to use textiles on your layout, so this is going to be part of my textile layer. I just wrap the ribbon around the piece and attach it with some double-sided tape on the back. I took the pieces to my sewing machine and stitched around the edge of each one with some white cotton, just for a bit more textile. Time now to consider what other embellishments I'm going to put onto my squares. I decide to go with some white Ric Rac. I tie this around each of those squares on top of the webbed lace and just tie a knot in the top. I now have 15 squares on my layout. I wanted to add a bit more colour to the background, so I took Tattered Angel's chalkboard in teal high heel and sprayed that along the top of my layout, and then I gave it a generous spray of water. The water helps to make the colour run down the page and also lightens the colour off a little. I'm going to use a couple of chipboard elements on this layout. These letters, I'm not sure what brand they are, I've thrown the packaging away. They say Sunday Drive. I'm going to heat emboss those, and also that little fancy circle there. I dip my element into my embossing ink pad and then apply the black powder and use my heat gun to heat it up and make it nice and glossy. I have to admit that I'm a big fan of having something nice and glossy on a layout. I use the same technique with these 2 pieces or 3 pieces of chipboard. The butterfly is an Imaginarium piece. The arrows, I'm not sure what brand they are. And the embossing powder I'm using is Hampton Arts Candy Turquoise. I'm going to go ahead and use my Aleene's Original Tacky Glue to attach the blue chipboard arrows to one of my panels. I've attached some pink craft foam to the back of each of my squares. I'm now going to go ahead and attach my title to the same square using the same glue. To embellish my second square, I'm going to use some of the chipboard stickers from the same range, the Family Co range by Fancypants, and I'm just going to attach them onto the square, and I'm going to use a little bit of foam behind the heart because that's going to be crooked because it's sitting on top of that Ric Rac if I don't put a bit of foam in there. My last square I'm going to decorate with the black circle that we have heat embossed, and a couple of the chipboard stickers from the same paper range that I used on the other square, and the blue butterfly. You can see here on the layout that I have added some gold spray on top of the blue. I did that off camera, and I wanted to tone the blue down a little. I'm going to now use my T-ruler to position my squares so that they are straight on my layout. I'm going to use my hot glue gun to do this because the amount of texture that's on the background would make it very hard for anything else to make it stick, double-sided tape or glue. So the hot glue gun is going to be used here. I'm going to stick the first one and the last one down first, well, one after the other, so that then I can centre the middle one between the two. Then I turn the layout upside down and use the same technique to attach the top row of the squares. I also have the added benefit of being able to line them up with the bottom row. So hopefully everything is square, and that is how I met the requirement of having 6 or more of the same shape. I wanted to add a bit more textile to the layout, so I've got this Ric Rac that blends perfectly with the pattern paper, so I'm just going to run a couple of rows across that at the bottom, and I'm going to put them on an angle so that they crisscross. I'm going to use my hot glue gun to attach this. I'm just going to put little dabs of hot glue here and there on the back of the Ric Rac, and so it stays in place. That completes my layout for today. I hope you'll pop over to Mystical Scrapbooks and check out their August cyber crop. It's a very friendly place, and they have prizes, so please pop over and check it out. If you have enjoyed my video, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. Thank you for spending your time here with me today, and I hope to see you when I next post a video.